This weekend, Fort Nisqually will hold their longest-running event that recreates the lively visits of a large group of fur traders who traveled across the inland and Pacific Northwest.
Visitors of the Brigade Encampment Reenactment will be met with musket fire and friendly competitions. And joining us to continue the conversation is Fort Nisqually Museum Supervisor Jim Lauderdale. Jim, nice to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Steve and Tyrah.
Really cool event with obviously a very rich history. Before we get into the reenactment itself this weekend, can you expand on the history of this celebration?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, let me say that Fort Nisqually was the first globally connected settlement on Puget Sound. It was established by the Hudson's Bay Company in 1833. And the 41st Annual Brigade Encampment is a two-day signature event that recreates the bustling excitement of the Fur Brigade, which came to Fort Nisqually in 1855 after collecting all those furs from around the Pacific Northwest.
So let's talk about the reenactment a bit. It sounds like a lot of planning goes into it. Can you expand on what that's like?
Yes, certainly a lot of planning for a two-day event. We have lots of different activities that are going to be going on, from engagé for the day, tug of war, contract signing, as well as a sampling food from our period kitchen, competitions, races, lots of different activities that are going to be going on throughout the weekend.
Do you have a favorite part?
Yeah, so I mean, with this being a recreation of an actual event, there are so many historically documented activities, but I think one of my favorites is certainly the Punch and Judy puppet show that's put on by Professor Petticoat. Always a lot of fun for the families. One of the seconds, I guess, would be the tug of war. We get the public involved, probably one of the largest tug of wars in the Pacific Northwest.
Wow, that's actually incredible. I'd like to see that. Jim, 2024 also marks the 90th year of Fort Nisqually's preservation at Point Defiance. How is the museum honoring the anniversary?
Yeah, so we're really excited this year for Fort Nisqually being in Point Defiance for 90 years. You know, prior to that, Fort Nisqually was established in what is today DuPont, Washington. But through historic preservation, we've been able to preserve two of the original structures here within the park. And then what you see today is the reconstruction of Fort Nisqually. We're commemorating the anniversary with lots of different events throughout the course of the year. But at Brigade, we're encouraging our guests to share their memories. People have been coming here for 90 years, and they always have the best stories to tell us. And so from 1 to 3 p.m. here at the museum, we're going to be collecting those stories on Saturday and Sunday.
I know we're showing some of the tug of war competition, some of the photos in there, which is pretty awesome. Jim, you know, so seeing some of the video and pictures that we're showing as we're chatting with you here, I mean, it's just fascinating to watch. For maybe somebody who has never been to that reenactment before, do you have any advice on how they should prepare, or, you know, what they should do once they get to the grounds there? Where should they start?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, start by purchasing your tickets. You can get tickets online at fortnisqually.org, or you can purchase them at the gate. And then once you arrive, plan to be here for a while. There's so many things to see and do. All of them are good, but the encampment happens outside the museum walls, with all the tents and folks that are camping out for the weekend and volunteering. We have over 170 volunteers that are going to be here this weekend, demonstrating different trades and skills and crafts that were common during the 19th century. And so starting there in the encampment to be able to see everything would be a really good choice.
Oh, that's good advice for sure. And I love that so many volunteers show up and help out. Now, for someone who hasn't been to the Fort Nisqually Museum like myself, what are some things they can actually find in the museum if they choose to visit?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. So we do have our visitor center with a museum store where you can pick up a souvenir of your experience. We also have over 13 historic buildings that you can tour the insides of, where interpreters dressed in period clothing engage our guests with activities common to the 19th century. We also have temporary exhibits in one of our buildings. Currently, the exhibit is In Her Shoes, which examines the lives of many of the women that were living in and around Fort Nisqually.
Wow.
So lots of things to see even on a regular day.
In a place that has such a rich history around here, what do you hope that people take away from it, whether they go to the City Museum or the reenactment that's coming up? What do you hope people take away when they see this history?
Yeah, so Fort Nisqually truly does have such a rich history, being the first, globally connected settlement on Puget Sound. That's one of the things that we want people to connect with, and also realize people are people. The people that lived in 1850s weren't that much different than us. They lived in different circumstances at a different time. But they were very similar to us today, and they had lives that were just as important as ours today. So we want people to come. We want them to experience the different things that life entailed during the 1850s, and possibly think about how you can incorporate some of those heritage skills into your life even today.
Such good history.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that lesson. And the reenactment event sounds like it's going to be a great time. We appreciate you coming on the show to tell us about it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Good to see you, Jim. Thank you. For more information on the Brigade Encampment Reenactment, which is happening this weekend, and to buy tickets, just scan the QR code that's popping up in the corner of your screen there. That's going to take you directly to komonews.com/hotlinks, and from there, you're going to find a link to their website.